Beckett Mariner is Cito Jax's fan club. The Ferengi put a paywall on a bomb, and Livik and Rutherford only like each other when they're twaining. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 10, Old Friends, New Planets, written by Mae Darman, directed by Bob Suarez. We have an incredible guest, everybody, showrunner of Lower Decks. It is Mike McMahan. How are you, Mike?
Hey, happy to be back. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you back, man.
Absolutely.
Great season, by the way. I got to say that on the record. Start off right away. We've been enjoying this season 4. Very good season, in my opinion. Just like from start to finish, giving us a new character with T'Lyn and just keeping this overarching story arch. It's just been a real joy to watch this season.
Well, Thank you so much. And it's always scary because like we did this season last year, and we're finishing it up right as it's airing. But we know we love it, but we're never doing anything specifically because we think the fans are going to love it. We're doing it because we love it. And so sometimes it's a gamble, you know what I mean? And then seeing just, positive response and people loving T'Lyn and people loving the storylines we're doing, it's awesome, and now with the finale out, like I can finally, a Thursday can hit where I'm not like super stressed anymore.
Hey, Mike, before we get into it, you just dropped a little nugget there that I want to elaborate on or have you elaborate on. You mentioned doing things that you love versus things that the fans may or may not love. Was there something ever in the writer's room, probably multiple times, where you're like, we would love to do XYZ, but we can't because the fans are not going to get it?
Not really specifically because the fans won't get it. Sometimes we want to do XYZ, but my rules about where in the timeline Lower Decks takes place, like I'm a fan of obviously all of Star Trek, and there's just some stuff that doesn't make a ton of sense to include. Like I'd love to just, bring in characters from Enterprise, you know what I mean? Or from whatever, or from the Gamma Quadrant or what have you. And it's which we did do once, but usually it's our own parameters. When I mean like, from a storytelling point of view, I'm really trying to please myself. Like this is a show, all the victories and all the mistakes of this show, like the things that you might not like, but the things that you love, it's all because I feel like I'm getting away with something, getting to make a Star Trek show. And it's things that I really wanted to do. And I think, every fan comes to Star Trek with the things that they love the most. You know what I mean? Like I have somebody on Twitter, constantly being like, come on, McMahan, more Cardassians. And I'm like, look, dude, I like Cardassians too, but like not enough to like get less of the other stuff we're doing. But, I hope that Lower Decks is kind of, if you love Lower Decks, it's kind of a proof of like a super fan can kind of make a show for themselves. And it doesn't, the things that could read as fan service to other people, it's sort of, it's fan service to me. Like I'm a fan. It's this thing I wanted, stories I wanted to tell, ways I wanted to tell it. So, it's a little, it's funny because like then the episode airs and it's out in the world. It's not mine anymore. The episodes are only mine while we're in production. And then the second it airs, it belongs to everybody else, and it's kind of a messed up way to make TV. Like I'm supposed to be making all of you happy. And I think that like my initial theory was, well, if I'm happy, it means you'll all be happy. And most of the time that works. Sometimes people are like, what are you doing, McMahan? But like, so it's just fun. I just continue to be really lucky to get to work within Star Trek because it's so beloved. And like, you guys are fans too. Like we're the first people to be like, that's not Star Trek. Get out of here. You know what I mean? Or like when you love something like we do, you hold it to the highest sort of scrutiny, right? And
yeah,
but I don't go into Star Trek looking to scrutinize. I go into Star Trek looking to be in Star Trek for a little while. And the only thing that pulls me out of it is when I feel like it's not giving me that. And so by making the show just for myself, hopefully, whether you like the episode or not, it feels like you're in Star Trek for half an hour, and that was like, that's like, I think the one saving grace for me whenever somebody might not agree with what story I want to tell or whatever, like, listen, you just got another 30 minutes of Star Trek, baby. Let's go. It's hard to do.
That's great. Great Star Trek.
I want to ask you about, some of the showrunner decisions that you make, Mike. This season, we talked to a few people who got their first chance to be directors. They went up from storyboard artists to now having the chance to direct episodes. And I want to commend you for giving them the opportunity, because these are people that really want to do this and are passionate about it. And we saw it in the work, the kind of quality that they delivered. So one, the kind of decisions that go into, giving those opportunities out when you see them as a showrunner, and also how much of fan input from watching the response from fans alters the directions, or maybe makes adjustments to what you insert or don't insert.
Yeah. So when it comes to the directors, really, I have to give that up to Barry Kelly, who's our supervising director, the king of the directors. Because like the way we make the episodes are, on an animated show, a director is somebody who draws, right? They're not behind a camera. They are the camera. Mm-hmm. They are the on-screen presence, So each director of each episode has board teams, and then in their board team, they're putting together sequences, then they're polishing it and making sure it looks like their vision of the episode. And then it all goes up to Barry Kelly, the supervising director, who's the drawing director above all the directors, that makes sure that, like, whether, when you have these different episodic directors, what makes the show feel like the show at the end of the day? Ultimately, did they bring themselves into it, but does it also fit into Lower Decks in a larger scale? And, I would hope that most shows, when you find people that are doing a great job at a lower level, they're still drawing, they're still directing sequences, and you just find people that either they make you laugh, or they make you cry, or they make you think, and it's like, oh, what would that person's episode be like? And Barry comes from this world at Titmouse Animation where, like, you don't only want to find people who are new and give them opportunities and train them and see what they've got, but you're also like, you're working with them on multiple projects too. Like, I'll bounce people from Lower Decks to Solar Opposites and back again when the different productions are up, because you just find people that you like to work with. We're all trying to make this thing. We're all trying to go from zero to something, right? And when you find people that can look at a script and it makes them laugh, and then they can draw it and it makes you laugh on the screen, it's the same thing with actors. Like when I found Tawny and Jack and Noelle and Eugene and everybody, like, you find people that fit into this thing you're trying to make from nothing, and then every little piece is another piece of the puzzle. So, sometimes we'll be watching another show and we're like, oh, I'm a big fan of that. I got to find out who's making that, see if we can work with them. And a lot of the times, you're finding those really talented people from within, and you're wanting to give them more opportunities. So, it's a lot of it is really like our line producer does a lot of that. Our line producer really knows. Our line producer can draw too. She drew Megan Trevino. She drew the Space Whales shirt for us like a couple of seasons ago, which cool. I love. And it's cool to have somebody who understands how to draw and understands what it means, to work on a show, to also help navigate, people moving into new roles and making sure Barry gets whatever he wants. And then obviously, like, it's not all directors. There's also these background designers and these character designers and these color teams. It's all these different artists. Nolan Obena is our art director, and he's kind of like the one that makes sure that the show is being designed and is being drawn and everything in a way that's going to work harmoniously with the board teams. So the short answer is, you find these leads that you trust, that you can that when you have a vision for something, they have their own vision, and it meets somewhere in between in a way that's better than you even imagined. And then when they want to promote people, that they're speaking that visual language and that they're doing that too,
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask you, because it's very clear that you or somebody on the team loves the episode, Star Trek Next Generation episode, Lower Decks. That was always one of my favorite episodes. I always thought it was underrated, one of the best episodes in my opinion, because it really just gave us a completely different tone and view of Star Trek. And the prequel to that kind of was The First Duty, I think in the 5th season, with the Culvered Starburst that I'm seeing right here, maneuver with Cito Jaxa, with Nicholas Locarno and all that. Can you tell us who is that big giant Lower Decks fan? Is it you?
Yeah, I mean, it's me. You know, Lower Decks has always been my favorite. It's so funny. First Duty, not my favorite, but you get Lower Decks from it. First Duty, when I first watched it, it bummed me out because like I didn't want Wes to fail Picard. Like that hurt, you know? And like I didn't think a Starfleet Academy member could behave like Nick Locarno did. And seeing that episode, like as an adult seeing that episode, it's you know, it's a good episode. Like I get it, but like as a kid, you feel let down by your heroes in it. You're feeling like you're on board with Picard. And then Lower Decks, the episode, really has always spoken to me because, again, and I just said it 5 minutes ago, I just want to spend time in Star Trek. You know what I mean? And like the more Star Trek I get, the better. And Lower Decks has always been a backdoor pilot to me. Like it's like saying, here's a new crew. Oh, you like Star Trek? Oh, you like Deep Space Nine? You're gonna like Voyager and Enterprise. Guess what? We're gonna give you one episode with a new crew. You know, and the crew you're used to are there. Like I didn't formulate Lower Decks to be an extension of the original Lower Decks. Lower Decks, the animated show, the original pitch was, I want to do a Star Trek where I just invert the A stories and the B stories, where the little funny downbeat comedic B stories are going to be the new focus. And then the A stories, the dramatic plot, are going to be in the background, you know? And I think you could say that like the original Lower Decks inspired me because I just wanted to tell more stories in Star Trek that didn't need that big story, you know? Like that's a comfort episode for me. That's an episode that like, it shows what Star Trek is capable of, that you can shift the focus of the episode. And it just proved to me that like how you could do a series that takes place on a Cardassian station or in another quadrant or back in time, you could also do an episode, you could do a whole series focusing on crew and a ship that isn't the coolest or isn't the most in charge, you know? And so yeah, like Lower Decks is always really, the episode has always really, really spoken to me as a fan and as a show creator and as a show writer. And then, you know, Lower Decks, the animated show is so like you take that one little inspiration and then you grow it into something that's like, if you didn't make the direct connection, somebody might not put that together. You know what I mean? Like Lower Decks, the show is inspired by all of Star Trek. And the let's invert the focus was inspired by Lower Decks, the episode.
Mike, did your formula change in this 4th season? Because we did get this overarching storyline in every episode for the most part, where you had this mysterious ship that kept being referred to. And we love, by the way, the way the different crews talk to each other. I think that was one of the highlights of this season too. Just watching the Ferengi ships talk to each other, Romulan crew.
Binars.
We loved all of that. And the Binars.
The Binars are all piping in. Yeah.
Yes. So was that something new that you thought you were going to do for this season? Like, oh, we're going to do an overarching storyline, something, take a different approach for this season?
Yeah, you know, I'm always learning while we're making stuff. Like in the last 5 years, you know, I've either written or done passes on or produced, I guess you could say, over 100 episodes of television because of doing Lower Decks and Solar Opposites simultaneously right off of Rick and Morty. And, you know, I always have plans for character arcs, how I want them to go. But then sometimes I find in writing the characters and working with actors and seeing designs, things that are better than I thought of sitting in a room. You know what I mean? And as long as it works, as long as it's in the spirit of the show, as long as it doesn't contradict kind of what we've done before, I like to try to keep things open enough for those things to be doable, you know, and especially seasonally, you can change it up a little bit. And so this season, there were two things that made me want to kind of change the format a little bit of the show, right? I knew every episode had to have an A story, a B story with emotionally driven comedic stories with a C runner that's a big Star Trek thing happening in the background, right? That's a basic Lower Decks episode. If you pitch, hey, here's a thing that happened to me in my 20s and here's a sci-fi version of it, that's the A story and the B story. And then the C runner is a big sci-fi important Star Trek thing that is just sort of affecting our two stories. That's a classic Lower Decks. And this season, I learned two things. I love Wage Douche, the episode we did second season that focuses on the Lower Decks of the other three ships. And I wanted more of that because Lower Decks is about expanding the things you've seen in Star Trek in places that live action kind of couldn't do because it was too expensive in some ways, or because they were episodic and they never thought they were going to bring them back. Like I like doing that, with Exocomps or Pac-Leds or Nick Locarno. Like there's lots of ways to do it. Going to Orion, seeing another side of that. But then, doing season 3, I also learned a lot about structuring how much appetite do I have for a big mystery. We did this big AI ship and we did a Rutherford episode that tied into it. And it there's there were lots of opportunities across a season to tell a long form story, but I never wanted it to take over. I didn't want Lower Decks to become a long form story season. So I wanted both. I wanted standalone episodes with these little cold opens that when you tie them all together at the end of the season, they're telling one big coherent story. And then I found little ways to tie them into the episodes, like, oh, I wanted to do an Agnes and Peanut Hamper and Badgie story, which technically our characters get pulled into because they need information about the overarching story. But if you haven't seen any other episode, that episode's still standalone. There's a little bit about it, but like what Lower Decks is doing isn't about a big serialized thing, but at the same time, we're on Paramount Plus. You get every episode. It's not like me growing up being like, oh gosh, I got to catch this week's Star Trek. I hope I don't miss it. You've got every episode. So I knew that an audience going in and watching this show is always going to have the opportunity to have every clue leading up to the Locarno stuff. You know what I mean? And so it gave us the opportunity to do these little cold opens that I got to have fun and get to see more of these aliens and get to build this little thing and have it be meaningful to characters, but also still get to do the episodic stuff. And that was really it. It was season 3's season long runner mixed with Wage Douche and wanting to kind of perfect that formula a bit.
Wow.
Yeah, we love it. I just want to highlight some of that. But 2 Vicks. I have no bones yet. I must believe.
Yes.
In the cradle of Vexilon. Something borrowed, something green, empathological fallacies. And by the way, Mike, you have been giving the most homage to, I would say, past Star Trek episodes, right? This show has done the most of that, I would say, by, all of the different universes and storylines that you've touched on in this show. It's been a treat to watch some of these things flushed out, especially in the comical way. I mean, I think he looks like Tom Paris. I mean,
he's like, it's like the same face.
He's like the same face. That bit makes me, that a bit is good when it makes you laugh and you've seen it 300 times. Like just the way they perform those lines is so funny. And like you hit on it, Cirroc, is like the reason that we go back all the time is because the comedy has to come from a shared place. Like the comedy has to come from character and from things we all know together. So like diving back, looking back is really helpful from a comedy perspective because I know you guys all have that too.
We do. And speaking of comedy, this is laced with this episode, by the way, and I wanted to ask you about this too, was like budget-wise, because it felt like the biggest, I don't know, Ryan, did you feel like I felt like I was watching a motion picture. It felt like almost like a movie.
I feel like I saw the crystalline entity too in that opening theme. These guys spare no expense.
The finales always feel like a big movie. You know what I mean? Like that's something we've done in Lower Decks. We're 4 for 4. And I'll tell you, season 5, I just finished writing the finale of that, and that's probably our biggest movie ever. You know what I mean? Like my biggest fear is that we're so busy telling a big movie that you lose some of the comedy and the characters. So it's like, I'm just constantly like, it's got to be big, but it's got to feel like Lower Decks the whole time. And that's, this episode you guys just watched definitely feels great to me. Like Mariner calling a Genesis device GD, getting a seatbelt on the bridge of a Starfleet ship.
When
like,
she said, "You're my first officer," okay, I was like, "That's the cutest thing I think I've ever heard her say." She's like, "You're my first officer, yay!"
Picking that ship, just like making it our little Wrath of Khan, you know. But like a Wrath of Khan with a Trinar shield, like it's funny, really, but it's also a movie.
Is that 3 binars? That was the
3 binars. That's a Trinar. That's a Trinar sitch.
They're like, hey, they're trying to shoot through it. Well, you should be trying our shield then.
Yeah.
Be able to.
Yeah, God. The Mark Twain stuff has me rolling all the time. Don't have Ryan write any of your jokes. Don't worry. He's not available for
obviously.
Mark Twain. Pulling the Mark Twain in again.
Yes.
In the finale made me I was like, I don't know. That's another one of those. I don't know if anybody else can like this, but it makes me laugh out loud. For that to be T'Lyn being like, this works. We gotta use it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The whole fluff, you're down. I mean, there were just too many moments in this episode where I found myself really laughing. And Captain Freeman's court-martial speech, you know, to kind of like rally the crew, another classic, you know, Star Trek type moment, right? In this animated show, which is like a serious moment, but classic, you know.
But in that moment, you see Goodgie like paying attention. You're court martial. Like,
you can't sneak that by us. We caught. We're like, wait a second.
So funny.
And we also saw Boothby in the corner too. That was amazing to see that cameo at Starfleet Academy. But Mike, we only have you for about 30 more seconds here. So before you go, can we just say thank you for making Lower Decks. Thank you for always being so gracious with your time and your thoughts and making us laugh on this show. We really appreciate you. And we are really looking forward to season 5 coming out in like 2 months, right?
Yeah, right. Season 5 coming out sometime next year. We're still, if it came out in 2 months, it would be black and white or not even drawn yet. But no, guys, I really, listen, this is my dream show to make. I love talking about it. I love hearing you guys laugh with me and liking it. Like, you guys know better than anybody. Like, you guys are true fans. And I think there's always a temptation to be like, to not give things a chance because you already have the things you like. Why would you take a chance on something new? And just the way you guys have embraced the show and the way you go into it being like, oh, this is probably going to be good. Like, I know that some people go and they sit down and they watch our show and they're like, what am I going to hate this week? And they just come up with like, that's not why you make TV. You make TV to like make people laugh, make them feel like, make them have a good time, get to spend another half an hour in Star Trek. And like, I think you only get that if people sit down and they go, oh, I really want to like this. I hope it's going to be good. And then my job is to surprise you guys and give you something you didn't know you wanted every single time, whether it's a new season runner or surprises with characters. I will say, just because you're the first civilians I've talked to outside of the show. What'd you think of that little turn with Tendi at the end, where she's like, "I've got this," and that cool music hits? How'd that
and
feel?
her eyes darken. I loved it.
Yeah, it felt great because I was sad that she was leaving, and it gave me something to look forward to, which I'm guessing is coming up in season 5, which is an adventure line for her in which she'll become relevant again and get rejoined. So I did feel Rutherford's like pain. Also felt weird because it was just right after T'Lyn says, "I'm going to be your science bestie."
Yeah, I know.
And then like,
and then you get it pulled away
for a minute and a half.
Tendi will return, but I wanted it to feel like, oh no, we're losing somebody, but then have this moment of power for Tendi where you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what she gets up to. You know, I just that the music and Noelle's acting and the way they directed that moment, I'm like, one of my favorite endings of the season. So I'm just really excited because we're recording this. You guys have seen it, but everybody else is about to see it. And that one moment, I'm really proud of that whole episode. And like, I don't know, I'm just geeking out with you guys. I just want to know what you thought.
I have to add one other thing too, Mike, while you're here. Attacking and addressing mental health with Mariner's character, having her kind of deal with that. It's something very real that a lot of people on a serious note can learn some things from and also identify with. So I just wanted to also thank you for throwing those little bit tidbits in because they matter as far as just It's like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm watching an animated show anymore. When I tune in and watch Lower Decks, I feel like I'm watching the crew of one of my favorite starships go through an adventure, and I'm signing up for laughter. So I suspend some of the seriousness of what I have in the Star Trek world. So
Yeah.
I love the adventure you take us
Well,
on,
I
Mike. Thank you
appreciate
so much.
that. And with Mariner's
Mhm.
mental health, I'll say, like, look, Mariner is always learning. We're always all learning. Mental health is something that we all, it's like, you know, mental health is health, you know, and it's even the coolest, best of us have things that they might have, you know, not processed. And if there's people out there who are hurting or anything, like, just know that, like, there's always paths forward. There's always new ways to look at stuff. There's always help out there, like, you know, and that it doesn't make you any better or worse than anybody else. Like, Mariner is going to move forward and still be Mariner. Like addressing some stuff about yourself or some stuff that you might be holding on to doesn't make you not you, you know? And I love that, like, there's that Mariner moment where she's like, Starfleet still isn't always right, but, like, she's in talk. If we only all had a Klingon, maybe a therapist instead of Klingon would be helpful. Like, getting to move forward and be like, you know, wow, I didn't think about it like that. I can still be mad, but I don't have to let this, I don't have to carry this weight like I did. I can actually embrace it and move forward. Like, you know, I think stories like that are really, I try to be respectful about mental health because I think, like, we all have stuff going on like that. And Mariner's the fucking coolest, you know? And if she can deal with it and she can look at it, like, and move forward and still be funny and still be fun and still be a good Starfleet officer, like, Mariner doesn't change after this. She just gets even funnier and better. Like, you'll like Mariner even more moving forward.
I do. I
Mm-hmm.
love that Boimler at the end say, "Oh, she's back." When she's, you know, like, let's go hit the bar and get drunk. Oh, she's back.
She's back.
Yeah.
And we want to
So,
say the voice acting's amazing. You mentioned Noelle, but all of them are just, Noelle's killing it, Tawny's killing it. They're all just, week after week, we're shocked by how great they are. And, you know, it's not an easy gig. A lot of people think it is. Just go there and say lines. It is very difficult. And these
how about Robbie bringing it back as Locarno?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fun, right?
Really, he killed it. Really killed it. We had a Will Wheaton sighting in this. I mean, just
Shannon Phil, Cito Jackson.
We had to track down. That's a whole other podcast. Nicest person I've ever met.
Wow.
Like, my line producer Brad still texts with her. We love her. We got to get her to a convention. I don't think she had performed for like 30 something years. And we were like, come back. We'll pay your SAG dues. Come on to Lower Decks.
Yes.
And she brought her daughter to Lower Decks. Like, she brought her to the record. Like, we had a blast. And, like, you know, getting to be a part of this Star Trek family and, like, getting to do this show is just such a treat. And you guys are part of that. And I do really appreciate you being fans of the show. It's awesome.
And you're right. She will be all the rage at a convention. She would be all the rage. And I do want to say one thing to you, Mike, on our way out. You gave us a lot of credit. We really appreciate you saying that we came in with eyes wide open. I want to say I'm a little bit of a snooty Star Trek fan. When I kind of did come in like, all right, well, let's see what this is. I know. Let's see what this is. But I want to give you the credit, Mike. You convinced me. I didn't watch the first episode already convinced it was going to be great. You and your team, the actors and the creators and everybody, you guys convinced me that this is great Star Trek.
Well,
and great
we only convinced you because you enjoyed it. And there's a lot of people that couldn't make that leap like you do, you know, and it's letting yourself be happy and loving Star Trek. It's good for you. It's good for you. Mm-hmm. You know,
it's based in love, and the love that you have is it seeps through the episode. So clearly, everybody working on this show has a love for their job, love for the work that they do, and also a love for kind of carrying that Star Trek legacy forward and making light of stuff. You guys are doing a fantastic job. This season 4 was phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I just can't wait to see more. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining.
We're working hard on season 5. I will be back with the 7th rule in season 5 for you guys to tell me if I let you down or if I held it up. Hold me, hold me to it. And then, if you guys, if you ever want to chat, just give me a heads up.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Mike McMahan. We really appreciate you and everybody at Paramount and Titmouse for making this happen. Everybody at home, stick around. We've got much more coverage of this final episode. of the 4th season on The 7th Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The 7th Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We've got an amazing guest right now. He is a prop designer for Star Trek Lower Decks and a Star Trek consultant for CBS. That's a pretty cool gig. It is Phil Murphy. Hello, Phil. How are you today?
Hey, great to meet you. Great to meet everyone.
Absolutely. Calling in all the way from Ireland, in fact.
Yep.
So, first things first, let's just get into this. Can you tell everybody, when you are designing props, how does that come about? Did you design the props way ahead of time? Are the animators creating the characters and then they say, put something in this hand? Or what's being a prop designer all about?
It usually goes hand in hand. We have the handouts from the script. The scripts come first, and then the boards are drawn, and we pick and choose who gets which prop, and then the characters, if they link up, we usually work with the character designers to see which turns might need a prop turn, and which characters just might have just a one-off prop they just use at that scene.
Cool.
Phil, I want to say first that big fan of your show. We really enjoy Lower Decks. I think it's a hit show.
Oh yeah.
It's extremely funny, very entertaining, and there's so many elements at play that I've really come to learn about the process of animation and what it takes to put these things together. And the first big question really I have for you, just about being an artist. I see you have a lot of toys around you and props around you actually in real life. So it seems like you have a lot of fun. And that's one thing that, we talked with Mike McMahan about the level of fun everybody's having putting this show together. Were you a Star Trek fan beforehand coming into this project? And what about being knowledgeable about Star Trek gives you the edge or advantage when you're doing your work for the show?
Oh yeah. I was definitely a Star Trek fan before I joined up. I was really brought up on TNG was my first Star Trek, so I was born when TNG was in its middle of its run, so I grew up from there with TNG. It's definitely has its eggs come in, like you can recall back to like there's this prop needed here, and so you might be able to say, oh, I could probably reuse a prop from this episode and kind of sneak it in for the fans to spot, and maybe even adjust it a little so they might be harder to spot, or they maybe put this and this together to make this prop. So that's always a fun thing to do. Yeah.
Okay, since you brought up TNG, I would love to get into that as well, because you're a Star Trek consultant. First of all, that's got to be the coolest gig ever. And I feel like every Star Trek fan in the world thinks they are a Star Trek consultant, but you're actually doing it. They're like, let me tell you something about Star Trek, even to the people that don't want to hear it. But this has got to be the coolest gig. First of all, before we get too deep into that, can you tell us, is The Next Generation your favorite series and why?
Yeah, it kind of fluctuates. I have a lot of favorite series of Star Trek, so I'll have to say TNG is up there. I have to say DS9 is my favorite series of Star Trek, though. So
yes.
All right. Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the most loved, I think, of my. I think Voyager is also great because it's kind of like that a whole family unit on the ship that travels through space, just sticking together. And DS9 is like a Western on the outskirts, trying to just survive on what's happened to them. And then TNG is like the explorers out into space, and the TOS then was like the original guys setting the mission out.
Yeah. And tell us about this consulting. Like, what does that kind of comprise of for you?
Mostly an art consultant on some projects that they recently I was doing designs for the Star Trek crews. So they asked me to like consult and design the lower decks designs for that, and sometimes secret projects that I really shouldn't talk about. I can't go into it.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Tell
All
us.
right.
Tell us.
Yeah,
No, can you tell us what you helped with the cruise with? Because Cirroc and I are both cruise goers.
I was on the last cruise in which I did see a lot of original artwork on board the cruise, some original designs, kind of lower deck theme, because the ship I believe is the Mariner. So there was a lot of links in there. So I'm sure that I might have seen some of the work that you created, Phil, on that journey.
Yeah, it was the lower decks crew. They had this art segment. Lower decks crew was all in their old school naval gear, so that was a lot of fun to draw.
Because a couple of years ago they had that bag, that like blue bag that I've got over here, and it looks just like the old TNG bag that they would carry off to the holodeck when they're going to go do their karate practice or something like that. I don't know if you had any part of that, but sometimes it seems like the people at the Star Trek cruise really do these deep cuts that we don't necessarily notice at first. But then for me, it wasn't until I got home and we start reviewing The Next Generation and we see the bag. I'm like, wait a minute, that's the bag that the cruise, boy, these guys are way ahead of it. Were they giving you like these deep cut kind of things, or was it more broad strokes, general themes?
They give me like, we want to see this, so then they let me free rein as they might have some input. Oh, can we see this, or can we see this? And then I just kind of do up some sketches and say, oh, would you like to see this? And then just go from there and see what happens.
Phil, what makes you specialize in props and backgrounds and all of those kinds of, like, how do you as an artist determine that this is the thing that best suits my skill set? Like, how is it that it's not something else? Like what is it about being an artist that makes you specialize in a particular field of it?
It's mostly what you really like to do, I suppose. I mostly do characters, props, and those. I really like the technical aspect of props, where you can take apart something and like think about how it works, how you can put it together, and how it would affect everything around it. Like if you have a tricorder and how that opens up, how it closes, how it might break apart, or if it's explodes, how it shatters into pieces. That's always fun to think about when you're designing a prop.
Mm-hmm. Now, can we just show off your website for a second here, Phil? Because you've done so much cool stuff. I was tinkering around on this a while back, and I just want to show everybody this stuff here. So we've got some Spider-Man stuff, right? Mysterio, cool. Dr. Octopus looking stout. And Batman, it looks like okay, that's Powerpuff Girls. Cirroc's a big Powerpuff Girls fan. But there was something
so yeah.
This one, look at this.
That jumped out at me as well.
It's a Star Trek Enterprise transformer that you've called Fortress Tiberius. The face looks extremely Transformers I'm a big Transformers fan from back in the day. This folding forward, kind of like the nose of the saucer section, is also very typical to Transformers, like when they would have a car that would fold forward and the head would come out. This clearly shows that you've got a very good understanding of the mechanics of the original Transformers from the 80s, the way they transformed. Could you tell us about that a bit?
Yeah, this was done for the 2018 comic series, Star Trek versus Transformers. In it, the TOS crew comes across the original G1 Transformers, where they had to leave Earth during World War III, and they crash land on the planet, and then the TOS crew come along and they wake up and they have a big fight with the Decepticons and the Klingons, and everything just meshes together. We definitely wanted to get the feel of the G1 cartoon and the TAS animated series, the Star Trek TAS series, which means that you couldn't have too detailed or too everything just moving around. So we had to make it all kind of bendy and kind of like it would easily break apart when you transformed. So if you go back and look at the original toys, it was all just bend here and then this little piece pops out. So we want to get that in the original Enterprise.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
You did do that. I saw that same image and it popped out to me as well. But the other thing that popped out to me, Phil, was the variety of styles that you have to your art. Like I saw, like this Transformers, this is a particular look.
This
but
is
then
Eric's. How cool is that? Eric's and MRS.
Yeah.
Later on the book, later on the book, later on the book, the crew get their own mech suits, so we had to think about how they could break apart shuttles and make them into robots to fight the Transformers. So
yeah, that is amazing. No, I was going to ask you really stylistically going from one project to another, like something that we see here with this hybrid Transformers Star Trek, but then going to Lower Decks and then going to Powerpuff Girls and all of these different styles. I would say when I visually, as the consumer, the audience, I see something totally different. What is the biggest thing that goes into changing your style? Because I would think that as an artist, you would only have like a look to your stuff, and it kind of looks one way. How do you make it look so many different ways?
Yeah, some artists do it. They make they're like a lot of comic artists stick to their one style through their whole career. But I think when you're designing, working on animated series and designing props and characters, it's really helpful when you can meld into the show that you're doing. Like if you can, I'm lucky. I can usually just take a few pictures from reference and say, okay, yeah, I can get that style. I always give that advice to if I'm young artists, like if you can fill your portfolios with different styles, if you can train yourself in different styles, you're a lot easier to get into any position that might be opening.
You know, I'm seeing a lot of really cool. Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
No, I was just saying it's easier for me. I usually put it that sort of thing. But I think if you train yourself to do that, it will be positions will come easier too. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say that we're seeing a lot of really cool stuff in your background. I know we see the one part of a blade of a batleth, obviously, up on your wall, and there's a mechleth up there even higher. Looks like there's definitely some stepping stools needed to put those way up there. You've got swords. You got a giant Shax looking over you and protecting you every day. You've got a Kayshawn over there as well, and a Lower Decks thing. Clearly, I see a gremlin. I mean, it feels like it's a party at your place. And basically, I'm inviting myself to your place out in Ireland. But until then, can you just tell us a little bit more about season 4 of Lower Decks? Did you have some favorite moments upon viewing it, or ahead of time that you were really looking forward to? Are there any things that really stick out to you for this season?
This is my first season, so it's obviously my favorite season. I think my favorite episode was the Agamus and Peanut Hamper. I got to draw Agamus, which was definitely a highlight for me. Jeffrey Combs is one of my favorite Star Trek actors, so drawing a character he voiced was amazing. So definitely seeing Mariner's kind of dealing with her past and the return of Nick, and it's just seeing these characters just come back and finish out their story has just been amazing to just be part of that.
Mhm. Jeffrey
this
Combs
is
is
this.
actually playing me right now. He's an impressive actor. He can play anybody. Please continue, Cirroc. Sorry.
Jeffrey Combs, ladies and gentlemen. Um, no, I wanted to say, Phil, this season has been very entertaining for us. We really have enjoyed this fourth season. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, are there any things that you hid in the background that maybe we didn't catch, that's just waiting to be discovered, that you're willing to reveal? That's the first question. And
I think they've all. I think they've all been spotted by now. The fans are great at spotting the Easter eggs at this point.
yeah, no, we've been looking. We paused the screen and we're looking for everything that we can see. So that's one of the fun games of watching the show. The other thing is, Phil, your screensaver is a animated version of yourself. And for the audience out there that can't see that, when you do log out and click out, the screen saving home screen is a picture that I'm pretty sure you drew of yourself in Starfleet Lower Decks uniform. And I think that's really cool because I've always said if I could draw, I would, obviously draw myself into as much as I could. And if I could sing, I'd be singing all the time. So since I can't do either, and I can only admire other people, do you ever get tempted to draw yourself? There it is, right there.
Gorgeous.
Do you ever get tempted to draw yourself into projects that you work on?
I do sometimes. We tend to go through approving processes. So I usually sparingly, whenever I get the chance, I might slip myself in. So we have to see.
And another question for you, Phil. Have you ever been to a Star Trek convention, if not a science fiction convention? Because I know you're out in Ireland and it's kind of a ways to make it out to one, but have you ever been to one?
I have been to science fiction conventions here in Ireland. I have not been to a big Star Trek convention yet. That's on my bucket list. I really want to get to one.
Nice.
So
if you do ever make it out to one, obviously there's a big one in London. There's one in Germany as well called FedCon, or the London one used to be in Birmingham, if I remember correctly, or the biggest, dare I say, the biggest in the world in Las Vegas. Either way, the closer to Las Vegas you get, the higher the chance that we can buy you a beer when we see you there. The ones in Ireland are going to be a little tougher. But if we're ever out that way, we'll definitely let you know. Phil, we only have about another minute with you here. Boy, I keep looking at your background. You're clearly legit. You're a hardcore fan, and we do hope to see you at a convention sometime. But honestly, congratulations on this gig. This is your first season. We hope Lower Decks continues on for many more seasons, and we hope that you will be with the show for many more seasons. Very big congratulations to you, to Titmouse, which has been doing amazing work, and of course to Paramount for providing us with memories of a lifetime. But really, we just appreciate you, Phil, and we hope to see you again a lot more times, honestly.
Thanks very much for having me. And again, Titmouse is amazing. The team there are just knocking it out of the park with everything they've been doing. All the characters, the props. My prop is friend Eddie, who's just a machine knocking props out every twist and turn. It's just amazing seeing his work. It's just amazing getting to work on Lower Decks. It's just a dream come true for me.
Seems it.
Well, keep up the good work, man. We love the show. We're big fans. We're already sold, and we're looking forward to season 5, which we hear is also going to be great. And you haven't let us down so far. A really entertaining show, and I just see nothing but success in the horizons. Especially if they have, the team that we've met so far. The people that are working on this project seem to have a true passion for their work. They have a love for Star Trek and a respect for the kind of, integrity and the thought that goes into making all of this stuff. So we really appreciate Phil having you on, and definitely look forward to this upcoming season as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been amazing.
Awesome. See you again soon, hopefully. And everybody at home, stick around. We've got much more coverage. And by much more, I mean some more. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton. That was Phil Murphy, also Mike McMahan before that. Still a lot to talk about, though. This is the end of a season.
Yeah.
This is the end of any new Star Trek we're going to be seeing for the rest of the year, certainly. So really happy that this ended with such a big bang. Let's get those trivioids of the week real quick before we get into this. Beckett Mariner is Cito Jax's fan club. Nicholas Locarno's ship is very white. Nick Locarno looks confident, but like in a creepy kind of way. Mariner's first officer is a Genesis device. Can you have 3 binars anyway? Beth has really bad allergies. Boimler has never seen anyone actually use the captain's yacht. That was cool. The Ferengi put a paywall on a bomb. Livick and Rutherford only like each other when they're twaining. Boy, there was a lot of stuff there.
I do say I love that idea. Hey, that's what a wonderful idea.
I'm glad they brought that back, honestly. The twaining.
I love that too. The twaining is hilarious. Yeah, this episode was kind of laced up with a lot of stuff. I like the whole scene. It's funny how they take scenes from the Next Generation. So when Wesley was in that scene, it really felt like you're getting a flashback scene with Wesley.
Yeah, it was nuts. And you know what I like when I'm seeing actors that I know. We know Will Wheaton. We know how he acts. We know how Wesley Crusher acts. Cito Jaxa, she was in a couple episodes of The Next Generation. We know how she delivers lines. And same thing with Robert Duncan McNeil. But here's what I found to be really interesting with that. They don't 100% deliver their lines like they did on The Next Generation or on Voyager or whatever. They deliver them in the Lower Decks fashion. So somebody is in that director's chair or, on the director's mic saying, can you spaz it up a little? Can you zip it up a bit or whatever it is that they say? Because it is definitely Will Wheaton talking, but they're making sure that his tone is matching the tone of the show, which is kind of a subtle thing, but it's a very cool thing. And I was very happy to see Will Wheaton back.
Yes, and in alignment with things with tone, another thing that kind of stood out to me was the pronunciation of the Ferengi when they were talking. There were moments when I heard the Ferengi talking where I thought to myself, Armin has coined that way of speech, that exact way. There were certain ways that the Ferengi in this episode would talk. And it just reminded me of somebody. He must have been watching Armin's delivery or studying some kind of tapes to get some background information on how to voice the Ferengi, because I felt like the accent, the enunciation, the certain parts were exactly delivered with the accent that Armin invented for the Ferengi.
Yeah, and I found myself liking Mariner more today. And, we already like her. She's the main character, but they added another little layer. And I felt something for her that I didn't expect, which was, it was like watching somebody grow up, And when she's had that moment, when she gets into the shuttlecraft or whatever it was and says, you're going to be my first officer. Yay. Kind of like that. It was really cute. It was a nice moment. And right before that, when she turns on Nick Locarno when he expects her to speak on his behalf, and she's like, "These guys suck," and she does that. I actually found myself being excited because I didn't expect it. Whereas normally you can usually expect what you're going to get out of Mariner. She's going to be fun. She's going to say all these funny quips. She's going to, kick some ass. But I was really, I felt something there, and that's hard to do. It's hard to do with animated shows. And obviously that's from the genius of Mike McMahan and from Tawny as well. But I don't know. I wanted to ask you like what you felt about the closure of this episode, or just throughout the episode, or any particular moments. Did you get that feeling that I did?
Yeah, I did get that feeling, and one of the things that I liked about this episode was it was a good use of Mariner. She, in a few episodes leading up to this, has had a smaller role. I felt like not as much presence in certain episodes. There were other characters getting highlighted, and not she wasn't the focal point that much. And this, to me, shows her ability when she is the focal point, how talented Tawny is as a voice actor, to make me feel this really human connection with this animated character. And the moment that happened for me in this episode was when Mariner was trying to talk Locarno out of his own depression, right? His own, like, she's like, you can let it go, it's okay. And like, she was trying to, that showed a level of maturity for me too as well. It was like, not only is she dealing with her own issue and trying to resolve it, which he's connected to because they have that tied in history together by the backstory, but it was like, it's like somebody is already trying to heal themselves, but has the maturity also to reach out to someone else who they feel needs that same kind of advice. Mm-hmm. So that was the moment for me that I was like, oh, that's very mature of her. And the other moment I thought I felt growth was when Mariner got saved and beamed out of the ship, right? When she was really willing to risk her life and get shot, right? She's like, I'm not going to move. And he shot anyways, but she was being beamed out. In that moment, just after that, they're like, let's get out of here. She's like, no, let's go get Locarno. So another moment that showed maturity for me and growth as a character was that she didn't just say, screw that guy, it's because of him. My friend died. It's because of him. He just tried to kill me. All of this stuff, he just risked all of our lives. He put us all in danger, da, 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 da. And even in that moment, she still said, hey, let's help that guy, let's save him. Another kind of growth.
Yeah, we also got a couple rules of acquisition. So I had to write them down. Rule of acquisition 91, your boss is only worth what he pays you. Rule of acquisition 2, I wonder if I wonder who added that line. I wonder if it was like when somebody else just kind of like snuck that in a little later, and then the higher ups are like, hey, no, I'm sure it was there since the beginning. Then there's rule of acquisition number 289, shoot first, count profits later. That's a nice twist off shoot first, ask questions later. So that was fun. We also had a Goodgie cameo, and we had a Boothby cameo. So Boothby, for anybody that doesn't know, he's an old groundskeeper at Starfleet Academy. I can't remember the actor, but he's been in a million things. And, he befriended Picard when Picard was growing up, or when Picard was in Starfleet Academy. He's always around. He talked to Picard, I believe, again, during the first duty in season 5. So it's really nice to see him in the bottom right corner of the screen, just, pulling weeds or doing whatever he does. That was cool. And it was cool to see the whole Nova Squadron, except for, I believe the character's name is Josh. And I don't remember if we ever saw Josh because we didn't in this thing, but it's like, we know what happens to him. I don't know. We don't have a ton of time on this, but I still want to make sure we hit all the major points. What were you going to say, Cirroc?
I thought it was cool with Boimler, acting Captain Bernard Boimler, when he had that moment in the captain's chair. I thought, I don't know why it felt so, you always notice like who sits in the captain's chair. It's like, actually, you have made me notice that, because every time somebody gets made acting captain, you've pointed that out in the past. And I never, I wasn't going to normally think about that. But
Yeah.
in this instance, it was Boimler. And I thought of you, and I said, oh, okay. Just like when I see away teams, I now think of, you're highlighting away teams all the time. So yes, acting Captain Boimler was cool for me. I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I actually went back and paused it because I wanted to see the full crew. It's really fun to see. That was the lower decks crew taken over. So you had Boimler as captain. You had T'Lyn as the first officer. So that's very Kirk and Spock there, with the science officer, the Vulcan science officer being the first officer. Also, we had Ensign Barnes being one of the two people at the helm or comm. We had Rutherford and Tendi in the back, and then we also had a security officer. But it was just nice to see who's positioned where, because who knows if we'll ever get to see that again. But it was nice to see when they say, all right, time for the lower deckers to handle business, who goes where, and that's who it was.
A couple of other funny moments for me was when the ship, Orion ship, first appeared, and Freeman says, look at the size of that thing. It just it triggered something that made me laugh. Okay.
What did it trigger?
I don't know. I'll just put it that way. But
like when we go fishing and there's like a big bass.
Well, the way it was shaped, and the way it just looked, it was funny. The other thing was when Locarno says, "I didn't graduate Starfleet just so I can, take apart a bomb or something, right?" And I love the line when Mariner was like, "First of all, you didn't graduate."
Yep.
Like, that was a nice little zinger. And then what is the name of that? Is it in Kayshawn or whatever it is? I thought he had one of the funniest lines in this when he says, Mira with sails unfurled or something like that.
And I think that means like what? Time to go fast? I don't know. We always have to guess what he's piecing together based on the context. Yeah, when Rutherford kept saying he looks like Tom Paris, that was very funny. We went over that.
Seriously, he looks exactly like him.
When Locarno says the first totally independent, unaligned fleet in the Alpha Quadrant, and then Boimler says the Maquis would like a word. That's funny.
Yes.
And
it
was cool to let us know that first duty episode at Starfleet Academy happened 13 years ago. So now we can really piece together that timeline, right? 13 years ago. Okay. Because I think Lower Decks starts maybe something like 6 years after Star Trek Nemesis, or 4 years or something like that. So we can really get an accurate depiction. So that means these lower deckers are probably floating around 30 years old right now. If 30, 31, 32, if Mariner 13 years ago was a first year cadet. But it's just nice when they give us that exact year. It helps to kind of piece it together in my mind, at least.
Another thing when Mariner says, "Oh, look, a debris of some dangerous, ambiguous space debris." Just the whole, like, every time there's a ship and they need to hide, it's some ambiguous space debris that happens to be around. I love that troll. And the captain's yacht. I think you brought it up earlier, but I wanted to talk about it. Didn't we just see the captain's yacht and make a whole episode about that?
Yeah, like, we were
Next Generation episode.
Yeah, we were just talking about the captain's yacht, and we looked at like the designs for it. But it was really cool that we got to see the captain's yacht in action, which looked freaking awesome, of course.
Yeah.
It's some ship that comes out of the main ship, and it's just for the captain to do a nice little tour of duty. That was really cool. Very, very good nerdy stuff there. There are a couple other funny moments that I enjoyed when Miggly Mo was fighting Baeth, and
Yes.
Tendi says, Fluff, you're down. He does. She sneezes. Miggly Mo goes, bless you, dear, which I don't know why that made me laugh. He's in the middle of a battle to the death, and he's like, bless you, dear. And then right after that, when Erica calls the Cerritos a support ship, that's when Phillips he's like, oh, he's rolling up his sleeves. He's like, oh, you can't call the Cerritos is a... That was beautiful. Good stuff. I had a lot of laughs. The Romulan lady that was talking about Locarno, she says, he gives us the freedom to scheme at our leisure. I don't know, that they really captured some good moments right before Tendi picks Miggly Mo. She's looking for somebody to battle on her behalf. And of course, all the bros are like huffing and puffing, and they're like, yeah, they're like drooling. Let me at him. So much good stuff in this one. Lots of funny moments.
Yeah, definitely. And the paywall for the Genesis device was another hilarious thing. You know, a Ferengi bomb with a Ferengi voice. I mean, they just really knocked it out the park. And I had a feeling watching this episode that I was watching a season finale of a show, like just the same way that, you know, all season finales kind of kick it up a notch and give you a little bit more. There was a little bit more here. There was a lot of ship fighting scenes, and, you know, hiding in space debris, and you know, the Trinar defense system or whatever it was. So there was a lot of action, is what I'm saying, in this episode. So it wasn't like just sitting around waiting for stuff to happen.
Yeah, I was hoping my Trinar joke would have gone better, but I guess it didn't. When I said, oh, they're getting through the shield. Well, you should be Trinar shield you should be Trinar. So anyway,
just gotta try. You weren't trying hard enough.
Yeah, I wasn't trying hard enough is the problem. Well, look, it's amazing that this is season 4 finale already. I don't know how Lower Decks has managed to knock out 4 seasons already, I believe in 4 years exactly. But they're working on season 5. I'm very much looking forward to it. It does feel like they're stepping it up every season a little bit better, a little bit better. Where we've left it off is with Tendi going to handle Orion business, family business. And that's obviously going to lend itself into season 5. I don't know what to expect, but I'm very excited for it. And I don't know when season 5 is going to come out. It's probably going to be quite a while, because there were some bumps along the road this summer with strikes and all that kind of stuff. But overall, I'm very much looking forward to season 5. I'm very happy with season 4. What do you think?
Yeah, me too. Me too. I thought this season was great. It was really fun to get to know a lot of the people behind the scenes, the Megan Lloyds, the Brandon Williams, the team that's behind the scene. We got a lot of good insight.
Amanda Wong, Barry J. Kelly.
Wong, Barry J. Kelly, exactly.
Mike McMahan, Gene Kane, of course, Phil Murphy.
Yes.
What a team.
A great team. It just lets me know, just like with our show on Deep Space Nine, it takes a collaborative effort of very talented people. It's not just one person. It's an ensemble of talented people to make a good show. And I believe that this Lower Decks group has that talent on board. And seems like everybody loves what they do. Seems like they're having the most fun. And that resonates when you watch the episode. So, yeah, I thought this was a great season, and I'm looking forward to season 5.
What a perfect segue. It does take a great team to make a show.
Yeah.
And our team is comprised of people with the names as follows: Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, which is near Ireland, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri. Missouri's less close to Ireland. Bill Victor Arucan.
Arucan.
Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Dieckmann, On a Post, Anil O. Polat, Joe Balsarotti, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Live from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manisfee, Marcia Classic Schreier, Greg K. Wickstrom, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. Everybody, please make sure to like this video. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel and you hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in to the audio podcast, please make sure you're subscribed. You give us a 5-star rating and leave us a nice review. Now, everybody in the comments below, let us know what was your highlight of this episode and what was your highlight of this season, because there are too many to name in our review here. So please keep the conversation going so that when the people that make this Lower Decks show that is so amazing, when they watch this video, they can look in the comments below and see all the things that all of you loved as well. And they can continue to get the kudos that they deserve.
Sweet.
I guess that's it for us. Amazing season, great episode, closed beautifully, ended on a nice little semi-cliffhanger just to whet our appetite for next season. Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks, Mike McMahan, for closing us out.
Beautiful. All right, everybody. That's it for us. Let everybody at Lower Decks know how you feel about them. Let them know how much you love them and appreciate them and love their show. That's it for us. We will see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.